In one of the videos that I've done previously, someone commented on that and asked me what a quadriplegic is. And I thought that was actually quite a good question because there are so many variations of a spinal cord injury and not many people actually know exactly what it is. I'm not an expert and nor am I a doctor, but I decided that I would try and explain it to the best of my ability. There are 27 vertebrae in the spinal cord, and depending on where the injury is, it can be a paraplegic or a quadriplegic. A paraplegic means that 2 limbs were affected, such as the legs. A quadriplegic means that 4 limbs were affected, so from higher up to down. I am a quadriplegic, but I'm an incomplete. I've done videos explaining that previously, but I sort of wanted to explain to others exactly what a paraplegic is and what a quadriplegic is. So for anybody who's watching this that is a paraplegic or a quadriplegic, and I might be getting this horribly wrong, so please excuse me. A paraplegic is usually somebody who has full use of their upper body, and a complete means that from the spinal cord injury down to the rest of their body there is no movement, or there is partial sensation but no movement, or it could be the other way. They could be an incomplete and have partial sensation with no movement, partial movement with no sensation. That might sound weird, but I did know a guy that had no feeling from the spinal cord injury down, but he could walk because the nerves were severed and not his spinal cord. So there are a million variations of a spinal cord injury. So this is like actually harder for me to explain than I thought it was. It was easier to write it down when I replied to this comment and explained exactly what a quadriplegic is. But that's more because I know what a quadriplegic is because of my circumstance, not necessarily because of other people. I know what a complete quadriplegic looks like, but I've met quite a few people with a complete spinal cord injury with being a quadriplegic. And there is so many different sorts of variations between complete, incomplete, and even complete. Like they're complete. I've seen that where people can't move anything. And I've seen the sort of when they can move their head just a little bit but can't move anything else. And when there is no sensation in the hands, but there is some movement, or there is partial sensation in the hands and partial movement, and that being a complete. I think I'm sort of just rambling on right now, and this is probably not going to make any sense to other people that are watching this, but I was sort of meaning this to be educational. I'm not sure if I'm going to be helping anybody, but if anybody was to want to know what a quadriplegic is, there is no exact answer to being a quadriplegic. There is no, okay, a quadriplegic is this, and that's it. Because there is no one answer to what a quadriplegic is. Same as a paraplegic, there is no one answer to that either. And it all depends on the injury, how bad the injury was, where the injury was, and any other injuries that were sustained. I've met quite a lot of paraplegics that are very similar in sensation and movement and abilities, but I have seen paraplegics that have also sustained a brain injury. And I've also seen paraplegics that are a paraplegic for a completely different reason, such as bleeding in the spinal cord. I'm not going to go into that because that is a little bit personal for the other person. I'm not going to talk about it. I also know a quadriplegic. He is a quadriplegic because of a tumour in the spinal cord. When I was at the Spinal Expo in Sydney a few months ago, I seen a very small child who was I think he was a paraplegic. He looked a little bit more like a paraplegic. He looked about 2 or 3, maybe 4 years old. He was in a wheelchair and he had a tumour in his spinal cord. And I was like, wow, what a little trooper. And the wheelchair that he was in, like, oh my God, it was so tiny. I thought, wow. But he was one of the good circumstances that came out of that the tumor was completely removed, even though he had sustained a spinal cord injury from the operation. It's probably the best case out of all the worst case scenarios that you could think of for that incident. And I really do not mean to offend anybody by any of my videos, so please excuse me if I do. That's not my intention. I hope I've helped in some way or enlightened you about what a quadriplegic is. I'm not a doctor and I'm not an expert, so please don't take my word on it. This is just my experience and what I've learned in the 6.5 years of being in a wheelchair. So that being said, I'm gonna leave it at that and I'll see you guys next time.